The snow was falling, quietly, white, over Alma. Alma was waiting for the bus. The snow was white as her hair, and it was covering the shoulders on her red jacket. She was waiting for the bus. It was a busy afternoon. And when the bus finally came, it was crowded with people wanting to get home from their jobs, from school. And she got in and thought about the difference from when she was young to the present. Back then, the gentleman would rise to give his seat to a lady, and the young would give their seats to the elderly. But that was no more. She moved her way back to the middle of the bus, so she would be ready to get off when the bus finally stopped. And there she met the eyes of a young woman. The young woman had a big backpack on the seat next to her. But as they met, the young woman got up, took her backpack and said, "Don't you want to sit?" And Alma smiled and said, "Yes, thank you," and got in. The young woman now had her backpack on her lap and held her arms around it to hold it. She looked at Alma, and then after a while she said, "It's a very beautiful coat you have. Is it new?" And Alma smiled and said, No, it's not new. It's quite old, but I like it. It's the favorite color of my husband." "Really? Oh, how long have you been married?" asked the young lady. "Well," said Alma, "we have been married for 50 years, and happily." She smiled. Happily married for 50 years. How do you do that?" inquired the young lady. Alma smiled and said, "Well, I'll tell you." "Excellent," said the young girl. And Alma told her story. "Well, first, I want you to know how we met. I was working in Stockholm at the time. It was in a small exchange bureau. I had a good boss, and I was in my late 20s, good colleagues, small room at an old lady's house, and I was very content with my life. But being in my late 20s and still single, my parents had already lost all hope that I would ever marry. I, on the other hand, was quite happy as things were. Of course, in the evenings, when I was alone, I wondered that maybe out there somewhere was somebody for me. Just maybe. And then one afternoon in autumn, I still remember it clearly, it was one of those brisk days with lots of colors on the trees, and I was inside. It was a very silent day, hardly any work to be done, any customers at all. I heard a voice coming from up behind me, deep male voice, and he said, "You are now about to meet the man you are going to marry." And I looked up in surprise and thought it was my boss making fun of me. And as I yelled his name more than twice, there was still no answer. And I realized I was all alone in the office. And I couldn't figure out where that voice came from. As I was pondering over that, the doorbell rang and a young gentleman entered the office. He was handsome, I tell you. And he walked up to the counter and wanted to exchange some money. In his hand was a violin case. And when he had gotten his money, then he asked for my name. And I, of course, refused to give it to him because as a young, respectable woman, you wouldn't own your name to a stranger. And then he gave me his name and said goodbye. He came the next day and inquired after my name, and still I wouldn't tell him. And then he came every day at the same hour to exchange just a small amount of money. And he would give me some idea about himself. He would tell me about his family. He would tell me about his interests. He would tell me about his job at the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra as a violinist. He would tell me all those things, and every day he would ask if I wanted to go out with him for dinner. I, of course, declined his offer. You couldn't do that at the time. And I think it was 3 weeks after, yes, 3 weeks. Then one day he didn't come. And I felt that I missed him. I had been looking forward to him coming every day at the same hour, and now he wasn't there. And as I left work, I was a bit sad, but there he was waiting for me. Somebody at the office must have told him when I got off work. He asked if he could walk with me for a while. He was clever enough not to ask if he could walk me home, because then I would have to decline. You can't let some stranger walk you home. But I said yes, he could walk with me for a while, and we walked and we talked, and so he came every day after work, and we walked together, and every day my route to my home got a bit longer, so we could talk for more than just a little while. After a while, he asked me out to dinner again, and I accepted. That evening, he asked if I would marry him, and I said yes. We married soon after, and since then we traveled the world, from one city to the other, wherever the orchestra took him. We didn't have much, but we had love, and every morning when I woke, I would lie there in bed with my eyes closed, listening to the sound of his breathing, still asleep, feel the warmth from his body. And I would think, what could I do today to make him happy? How could I make him smile? Sometimes it would be to give him a foot bath when he got home from work late at night. Sometimes it would be a special cup of tea. Or sometimes it would be like it is today, to wear my red coat. It is his favorite color. So there's little things. And I know that in the morning, he would lie there pretending to be asleep, trying to breathe as if he was still sleeping, and thinking exactly the same. How could he make me happy? And that would be small things as well. One scented rose, piece of chocolate delivered to work. Small things. So we were very, very happy. The young woman looked at Alma and said, "So, did you get any children?" And Alma said, No, we didn't. We were married 5 years when he got ill. He was very ill, and then he died." The young woman looked at Alma, almost in shock, and said, But you said you have been happily married for 50 years. And Alma said, "Yes, we are married still. I talk with him every day. He died, but we are still together. I can feel him. I can feel his love around me. And still, every morning when I wake, I lie with my eyes closed and think, what can I do to make him happy? And one of those things is to live my life the fullest, to make the most of it. And you see, darling, that is the key to a happy life. Oh, by the way, this is my stop. I need to get off. Alma pushed the button. The bus stopped. She got up. As she was walking out the door, she turned and looked at the young lady and said, "Oh, darling, do remember that it only works if it works both ways." And then she got off the bus, out into the snow, and looked at the grey clouds and thought of her husband.